And so we are exactly 1 year after the events of Season 1 and exactly 4 years away from the Battle of Yavin. Our episode begins with one of the coolest inside views of a TIE fighter we've ever seen. We're going to get more of it here in a moment, but this is the TIE Avenger prototype, and I'm pretty sure it's the only one like it. And especially when we see it here in a little bit, it is quite substantial. It can deal with a lot of punishment because Cassian's going to put a lot of punishment on this new prototype. We get to see a new droid here that is just basically a fancy iPad docking station, which if there was one of those, I would buy it. I would have one of those in my house. Now, you might just want to rush past this first opening conversation between Nia and Cassian, but I think it serves as a good reminder of what this show is about, really taking normal folks, normal everyday people, and what does it look like for them to be a part of a rebellion. Really, this is Cassian's line of saying, like, you've always been there. You're waking up from the Matrix. You're unplugging and seeing things for the way that they really are. This is who you truly are. And that's really been the message all throughout it. So it's like a recap of the purpose and the thesis and the understanding of what this whole show is going to be. And then we get Cassian walking down the hallway on his way to take and steal this TIE Avenger. Now, it's interesting to note that the key that Cassian uses here is what we see tucked into the pockets of all of the Imperials. So it's like this little pen looking thing that he was given that unlock and open all kinds of things. And so kind of maybe the more keys that you have, the more power you have. But that's what unlocks and gets him to get access to the TIE Avenger. Have you ever gone over your friend's house and you're both playing a video game and he hands you the controls and he's playing inverted controls for some reason? That's exactly what Cassian Andor experienced getting into this prototype, not understanding where anything is, thinking that up is forward instead of backward, and he smashes into the side. I think it's a hilarious moment where all this tension is being built, and now it turns into this ridiculous bouncing around like a pinball all over the walls. But we see that this prototype has a lot more beef to it than your average TIE fighter. It's one of these things that obviously would have made sense, that would have gone into research and development of all of these different types of technologies, even though this is one we don't see being used in the 4 years where we're going to see the Battle of Yavin. And it even is made more hilarious when you have all the stormtroopers running in and you just hear the one go, "What the?" It was just kind of like, why or how in the world are we dealing with this right now? And we get a also hilarious moment where we can see stormtroopers still can't hit anything because we have the guy with the rocket launcher miss a massive TIE fighter right in front of him, and all Cassian has to do is swerve, and now he's out. And this whole sequence was just beautifully shot, really pulls us into the story, and it really is one of those things, just like the opening sequence from Season 1, it really gets you invested right away with what's happening, with a little bit of dialogue, a little bit of story, and now we've got some action, and we're off and rolling. And I'm pretty sure that this is the longest continuous sequence we get in this entire episode, as it's going to set the ball in motion for everything that's going to happen going forward. Nix is still being haunted by Gorst, who is the one who is responsible for torturing her with those awful sounds in Season 1, even to the point where it kind of scared me as well, because we're walking into this little villa that now they're all living in, or whatever it might be, and I just was not ready to see him in the mirror. It definitely caught me off guard, but it is all just a bad dream, a way to introduce us to where they are now on Mina Rao, the place where they're going to be staying and have been for the last year, and will be there, well, for the next few days at least. And now we get to see Chandrila, specifically the Mon Mothma estate, for the first time in live action. And this thing is absolutely gorgeous, but it's not just because of these wide out shots. It's because we get a 3-minute uncut walkthrough following Mon Mothma as she's talking to different guests who are all showing up for her daughter's wedding. She bumps into Vel, she bumps into Tay, she even bumps into Luthen Rael. Yes, that's right. Luthen has been invited to the wedding, but this is to Mon Mothma's surprise. This was not her doing. Instead, this is Davos Skolden, who had brought Luthen in because Luthen had reached out to him with a proposition saying, I can find you a piece of art that you would have wanted that's part of the Chandrilan heritage, that's 25,000 years old, that's only one of 12 in existence, and I'll bring it to your wedding, which really sounds like Luthen wanted to be at this wedding more to make sure everything goes well, and that's kind of what happens, and he even ends up finding out some problems that are going on, so it was a really good thing that he worked his way to this wedding, but I don't know if that I've ever worked that hard to try and get a wedding invite. And then we're introduced to Min Rao, a farming agricultural society where they build their houses into the cliffs and they even have their own tram cars, where we find that Bix, Brasso, and Wilmon have found a home for the past year, basically working as mechanics, helping them get all the harvest and the grain that supply back to the Empire. Yes, this is a grain supplier to give food to the Empire. They have all of those stormtroopers they got to feed somehow. And then all of a sudden, as they're working out in the field, Bix turns her head and sees, that's right, a Gazanti-class cruiser. This one is one that would house a whole 40-plus regiment of stormtroopers with vehicles and everything else needed, and we find out that they're coming to do an audit. Now, it's been almost 8 years since they've done an audit previously, so this isn't necessarily normal practices, but we already hear that Wilmon, Bix, and Brasso do not have the right paperwork, and if they get snooping around too much, it could really cause a problem, especially since they're trying to hide and stay low after all the events of Ferrix 1 year ago. So it turns out that Cassian was stealing this TIE Avenger to hand it off to someone else, but when he lands looking for them, all he finds is trouble as he's taken captive. Then we hop to a new location in the Star Wars universe, the Malthine Divide, where we get to see our first look at Director Krennic. And so we have Director Krennic standing before these 12 officers who all have these chalices of wine in front of them. They're just missing the bread, kind of Last Supper vibes. All 12, that would make Krennic Jesus. That's kind of weird. Anyway, they give a breakdown of Gorman, this planet they have interest in. They play this like 1950s style little infomercial for the planet, almost like it's trying to get you to come visit. Definitely feels like they provide a lot of the high-end fabric for the galaxy, having these spiders weave constantly from dusk until dawn. And the scene just basically ends with us now knowing that the Empire is very much interested in all of these happenings here on Gorman. We're going to find out that it's really about the calcite in the ground that they have to mine. But before we can get to that, we flip back to what will be Yavin 4. That's not been revealed yet, but it will be soon. And we have Cassian, who's being interrogated by this group of rebels who really have no leader and have no clue what they're doing.
Who are you? Who is he? He's an impy pilot.
Just do this, please.
Then do it. Let's see it.
We're waiting. Let me know when you're done.
I'm here to meet a friend.
And if I'm being honest, it was these scenes that were the weakest for me in this first episode. I know I shared that in my 3-episode breakdown, but I thought they could have tightened this up a little bit. It is a callback to some of the people we've already heard in the conversations between Saw Gerrera and Luthen, referencing some of these other rebel sects that are not ideologically aligned with what Saw Gerrera would want. This is one of those groups that wanted to see more political change than just warfare change. And you can kind of make that understanding now because they're so disorganized. They're not very disciplined. They're not very regimented. They don't have like second in command leaders. It feels like to me that if Saw Gerrera happened to die, that his group would still continue, whereas this group just completely falls apart into utter chaos.
Stolen for who?
For the rebellion.
Who's rebelling?
Cassian is held captive, and really I think the whole purpose of this is this one line when they are pressing Cassian once he recognizes that they're part of the rebellion.
You're the Maya pay brigade.
What? What did you tell him? This is on you.
Crap! We're still robbed. We can see we're stuck.
I know Maya.
Maya's dead.
According to you, he's the
Because
alien
I
we
was
saw.
trying to save her. We got ambushed. We lost 6 ships, 40 fighters.
My brother was the only
Your
one
brother
that
ran
could fight.
away.
How do you know Maya?
She was a customer. We've been supplying you along the way. Argue all you want, but we're all part of the same rebellion.
Your friend was hostile.
Here is the overarching problem of the rebellion. They're disorganized, they're splintered, they're not brought together under one banner. So while there might be little pockets of success here and there is no beating the Empire unless you have a unified team and plan, like what's going to happen over the next 4 years. So now it's clear that Dedra has been pulled specifically by Krennic because of the way she thinks. He presses her for her plan because they need to get the Calcite out of the ground at Gorman, and they need to figure out a way to be able to bring the Empire presence they need there to keep everyone at bay, knowing that this is going to weaken the core of the planet and possibly bring down the complete destruction of the Gorman planet. They need something, and Dedra knows exactly what that is. They need Gorman rebels to rise up and fight, therefore justifying the presence. Well, it's also even mentioned that there's an armory being made on Palmo. That's one of the main cities on Gorman. That's already happening. So I think when we flash forward a year from now, we're going to see that plant is finished, and a lot of these seeds that have been planted to bring about rebellion, they're going to water and till the ground, much like a gardener, to manufacture a rebellion there on Gorman. Then we're back to the wedding where Tay Colmer is sharing that things are not going that great for him. He's now separated from his wife. He's losing money on bad deals. And it sounds like he's setting up to try and shake down Mon Mothma for money out of the foundation that's been set up. And it's going to bring about some worry from Luthen. But in the process, Mon is pulled away because, well, her daughter and her betrothed just got in their first fight because he won't hold her hand. No, I'm not making that up. That's exactly what they said happened. And it just kind of goes to show the level of immaturity of these two who are being brought together. And it speaks a little bit more to tradition and sets up some of the conversation that's going to happen later on in a following episode between Mon Mothma and her daughter right before she goes through with the wedding ceremony. And the episode finishes with our rebels getting in a fight over who's in charge. As you would imagine, they are just big children, and it all ends in a firefight as they retreat to their two separate locations. One group's going to hold up in the TIE Avenger prototype, and the other back to the downed ship. And that's where our first episode concludes. It's touched base in so many different storylines. We've got everything moving. How is Cassian going to get out of this? I think this first episode was really well done, well paced. Everything kind of just moved very quickly, and we just got little breadcrumbs leading up to what's going to happen in the next episode. If you enjoyed this breakdown, consider subscribing for more just like this, or you can click right here and check out the video I did talking through all of the 3 episodes that we got to see in this first arc. Guys, thanks for being here. I'll catch you in the next one. Remember, the Force will be with you always.